Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. Really excited to be here and kick off season 2. So, first, just want to say thank you. Thank you for the support. The feedback has been great. Season 1 really laid a strong foundation. So, going forward in season 2, I really want to dive into this question around how business owners can maximize their exit. And to do that, we have some exciting guests lined up. So, today we had Robbie White come in. He's with Virginia Asset Management. He approaches that question from a financial planning and wealth management point of view. There was so much information there that I said, Robbie, I don't think we can cram this all into one episode. Let's have you back and continue the conversation. So this is episode 1 of the interview with Robbie White. Check back in as we continue this conversation. Let's dive in today.
Transact Capital presents Banking on Your Business with Jacob Robertson.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Robbie, good morning. Yeah, really appreciate you joining us here today. So a little bit of backstory. We'll get into kind of how we met, and so part of our role is to maximize business owners' exit and help them when they go to sell their company. And in order to be the best advocate and resource for them, there's a lot that goes into the process before we get involved, and there's a lot that goes into the process after. And we're helping these business owners. Most of them, they're going to get one exit in their life, and they want to maximize it, but then they want to make sure that exit is used properly to really fulfill a lot of their dreams, provide for them and their family going forward. And so in our search to find the right partners and the best partners, came across you, and how we really first started was a class that you were teaching. It was Business U, and I'm sure we'll talk about that, but I was able to attend the session and really, got a lot of information myself that I was excited to share. But I realized, hey, there's a wealth of information here, a really great resource that I want to tap into for this audience. And I think it's going to be so much. We talked about this, so much conversation that maybe it's beyond just one podcast episode. You come back and you're a repeat guest. So that led to a really exciting conversation with, coming up with this strategy. And so it sounds like we got what we're going to call the Pave the Path series here. So with that being said, take a second here, introduce yourself, make a connection with the audience, and then, like I said, we're going to dive into a really good conversation today.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, and it's been great getting to know you and the part of the process as well. And Business U was fun doing that together. So, but my background, I'm Robbie White, and I am a financial advisor. I'm a business consultant in my primary role with Virginia Asset Management. So, a little quick background on my story, how I got to where I am is I started I went to school at the Virginia Military Institute, which we have that connection as well.
Right. Yeah.
And I graduated as a civil and environmental engineer. And to shorten the story, I kind of did that because I was told that would be the hardest thing you could do. I wouldn't recommend it. So that was the obvious choice, right? Let's try to go through that route. I worked as an engineer for about 7 years, transitioned through to a branch office, helped run the office and grow the office, and really started to figure out that I fell in love with that part of it, with the business side, with everything around the growing and the numbers and the finances. And the engineering itself wasn't the calling. So tried to find my path to, well, how do I do this? How do I get involved with this and really be on a team in a position where I can serve the best and be a resource and help. So about a year of discovery, found my way back to Virginia Asset Management, and have been on just an incredible team of folks who have just decades of experience combined into being a resource for owners on where that is. So that's been the main part of my journey. And also just to kind of give the personal side as well, I'm married to my high school sweetheart. So we started dating at 14, 15, right around this area. We moved to Charlotte for the engineering work, came back here together. We now have 3 kids, 3 boys. So have a 5-month-old, a 2-year-old, and a 4-year-old. So right in the heat of things on the personal family side.
Yes,
but it's been so great and been so blessed. So so at Virginia Asset Management, I think we do things maybe a little different from where it is, and that's kind of where the course stemmed from, and that's kind of how we got to sitting here today.
Yes, yeah. So it sounds like you like a challenge.
It's something that tends to be what I try to find.
Yeah, and so So I am curious. I was a logistics officer in the Army when I first got out of VMI, and that was a path that clearly I'm not on today, but it was so impactful. What do you see lessons learned from the time as an engineer with that kind of methodical thinking? Do you see that transferring where you're not building buildings or building roads, but it's still just the process? Do you see an impact?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something I've reflected on quite a lot to try to see those pieces. And the symmetries are, yes, the way you learn to think. When you're looking at a problem that in engineering, the point of engineering is there isn't a solution on paper.
Right.
So
right.
you have to look at a problem, which are the variables, and then pull together an equation, so to speak, that leads to a solution. And it's not the same equation every time. And many times you don't even have an equation. You have to make one to get to the answer. And so, I took the professional engineering licensing exam, had that as well. And that test, you can bring in anything you want. You could bring in bookcases of books to take the test because the answers aren't in there. You have to be able to use the knowledge, apply it differently to the solution. So that is kind of the way that I'm able to go about the job now. Among the team and every other resource we have, the thing we often say is it's to build a toolbox. That's what we're doing, and put as many tools in there as we possibly can so that when we get to a situation, we may have a drill and a hammer and a saw to come out here, but we don't often use the monkey wrench. But in this case, we need the monkey wrench. So let's pull it out to make it work. And so that way of thinking and problem solving has been helpful coming into, of course, the dynamics of business owner planning and where it may be.
Right. Yeah. That's a great way to put it, and that's what I'm excited to dive into is that toolbox that you have, and I mean you have a lot of great resources and answers, but so I think today we're going to start the conversation off with the initial approach of you're a business, we're a business owner, our audience has a lot of business owners out there, when and in the reference of exiting their business. Mm-hmm. When do you think they really need to start focusing on it? And the easy answer is from day one. You build your business with the intent to sell. And the worst answer is the last day, where they show up and say like, I'm tired of this. I just want to move on. Where's that happy medium that you really recommend business owners engage a person like yourself, and then walk me through that process? How do you work with them to really maximize and optimize that process so that they can exit their business on a high note and really fulfill a lot of their dreams going forward?
Yeah, and you said it well in the beginning, and I know it's kind of a great idea, but we have to do that. But the reality is you want to start as early as possible, right? It's easy to say, it's hard to do, and but really day one is the right time, assuming that most people haven't started from day one on the exit plan. Trying to answer the in the real world question, it's still as early as possible. But I've been asked this question, obviously many times. It's going to be you really want 3 years at a minimum. We would encourage to at least be forming the planning and doing some initial things at about 5 years ahead of time. The more time we get, the better. And but really 3 years is that cutoff. If we're trying to exit and we don't have a 3-year runway, it's going to be tough to get maximum value or the desired exact outcome out of the business from there.
Okay. So when they first engage you at that 3-year mark, what at that point, what questions do you hear often, and what questions do you wish they should be asking at that time?
Right. So number one, of course, is what do you think the business is worth?
Right.
How much can we get in this transaction? And that's a good one to at least know at that point in time or have a sense. I think more to your question of what do I wish they were asking, or what should you ask? It's really in our mind, the way it starts is to assess at that point, to go through basically 3 different primary question sets. Number one, personally, what are you trying to achieve? What's the outcome? That's the goal. So that's not to say that's not personal financial. Okay, that's personal. So I'll give you a quick example. I had a client who was exiting his business, and we said, so what is next after you sell? And he said, I'm going to move to land we have in North Dakota, and I'm going to build our dream house we've been talking about forever out there. And we said, that is just a beautiful vision. However, you didn't answer our question at all, right?
Right.
The question is, what are you going to do after you leave the business, right? You're not going to build a house and just sit there for the next 20, 30 years, right? You're going to do something. So helped him craft that vision for what's the impact you're going to make. Is it starting another business? I hope not, right? Or in his case, for his age, or is there a giving thing, something you want to give to or help your children with something, or what is it? And we built that plan for what he's going to do. And that was number one. Okay, so now we know what happens after exit. And if you don't have that well understood, it's messy. You lose your place. You don't know where to go.
Right.
Then the next piece is the personal financial. Where do we stand right now in our financial positioning and stability? Is this business sale a portion of that security? Is it all of it? Is it just a small piece? Or let's assess where that is. And what's the number? When you exit, is there a number you need after taxes and costs and fees? Where are we on that number? Let's get to that core root. And how exactly would we apply that to make sure it works with security? And then the third piece, which maybe seems a little backwards, and there are in that order, is to assess the business, where you stand in value, and what could you do inside of the processes, the people, the systems, the revenue, the balance sheets, P&Ls, to get the most value you can out of what you have. Okay. And not assuming that you're not, out of thin air creating 3 times the revenue. That can't be a value plan. It's to say from where you are right now for revenues, how do we get you the maximum value on the scale on, an EBITDA multiple factor? So those 3 steps are where you start with, go through the questionnaires, and then you would build a project plan that aligns with the time frame of exit. So you are going to be systematically achieving those personal, financial, and business goals so that when we reach the time frame of exit, we have maximized value, we have a solid personal plan and direction to go into, and personally, financially, we're ready to exit. So when we get that offer, we're not hesitant. We don't go, well, is that enough? We know, right? So we can take that with confidence.
Yes, I mean that's so much to unpack there, and I really like the knowing the number, and that's always a challenge. Like if you don't have an idea of like, well, I need at least this much, then like you said, you don't know, and it introduces that sense of hesitancy and doubt, and say, well, is it, should I be greedy and go get more, or is this pretty good? I need to walk away from it, and but I really like like you said, the emotional aspect of it, and I think a lot of business owners don't really fully process this. And when I talk to people who have exited, this comes up often is, what's the purpose? What's going to be that driving factor once you walk away from your business that's going to excite you to get up in the morning? And so that's really good. I mean, do you kind of see yourself as a, more of an emotional, Sherpa in a sense to, guide these business owners and really kind of ask those questions, not related to finance at all, but, more on the personal level?
Yeah, the relationships that we have with clients is not just let's meet once a year, every quarter, and look at the numbers. That's not what we have. It's of course much deeper. We're getting to know them and understand them, so that when we're making financial related decisions, we know the core, the who the person is, who the family is, and aligning with those pieces. So it's always deeper. I do want to say as well, I've had some clients mention to me. So it's, I guess we're starting with a therapy session and then we're going to the planning part. And sometimes it is that way. But the other part to it is there are situations where we are as open and clear and direct with clients as we can, where we certainly can guide through questioning, to help clients self-discover, right, where it is and to get to a better answer. There are certain situations where the answer is so unclear. We do not know what we're going to do personally, especially on the personal side next, where we may actually encourage and suggest a third-party consultant.
Wow, yeah, okay.
Somebody to come in and do the actual personal coaching therapy in some ways, but help them build that vision, because that's not who we are. We're not psychologists, but we are able to at least know, do you know? Yeah. And can you get to an answer? And if you can't, who can get you there? Right. And then bring in that person into the planning team.
That's great. Yeah. And that's, again, we're trying to go beyond just the transaction, just the things that we focus on from a business perspective. That's why I think there's so much synergy, and I really felt that at the Business U classes was, if we really want to be an advocate for our clients, for these business owners, it goes beyond what we do, and it's all got to be a seamless process that's working together on their behalf. So yeah, so we'll kind of transition to. I'm kind of curious to get your feedback on some scenarios. And so, we talk about business owners and they should plan, but reality is sometimes they don't. And sometimes they'll sell a business and they'll deposit $10 million into their checking account and say, yeah, things are pretty good. Yeah.
Spend that down the rest of my life.
Right. Yeah. And so obviously that's not the right approach. So would be curious, just, high level initial thoughts. Say you have a client that walks in and they say, hey, I just exited my business. Let's say they're 50, 55. They have, no intention to return to the workforce necessarily, but they do want that, $10 million to provide for their life with a little bit left over. What are some initial thoughts that come to mind, some strategies of, if this person walked in today, this is what I would start working on for them?
Yeah. And, I hate to, in some ways, kind of repeat the process, but
yeah, no worries.
But it's it's important to say that, of course, for every situation, the solution is going to be pretty different. There's some core consistencies among planning there, but it depends on life stage. It depends on, you mentioned there somebody who 10 million and they have no intention of returning to workforce. So
right.
Just if in that situation, and I would take one additional liberty to say they're, in their 60s type of thing, and they're not really, they're looking forward to their financial independence. They, for that person, it's to assess what's the lifestyle you're going to want and need, right? Is it subdued? Is it, you want a couple homes? Is it, we're traveling the world, staying with the grandkids? Let's talk about what does that personal vision again look like, so that we can understand what that cost, right? And then how those costs may change over time. Then ideally, it's to build a plan structure where there's a portion of those proceeds that are likely going to be positioned to provide an income stream that's reliable and doesn't really matter what the markets do. It's going to be, this is income coming through every single month that covers the basics. Then with as much as possible of that cash, it's to position it for both additional income to supplement what's needed and then growth. And it's a very delicate balance, right? There's going to be a piece of it that's just designed for, it's going to be volatile. It's going to be up, it's going to be down, but long term, it's going to provide growth for you so that you're beating inflation. Maybe there's some net worth to pass to the kids or whatever your passion may be, charity, and then to use the rest of it to make sure that there's a stable, reliable income source where when the market's changing, stock market, you're not panicking, right? We know where it's coming from. And I think the other important piece to add is, we said 10 million, and that actually is an amount that is right up on the thresholds right now. But if it's even a little more than that, or right around there as well, estate planning right then becomes critically important, because, for anyone who doesn't understand the estate planning issues, as an individual right now, it's a significant amount of money you can have before you're taxed on a state level for that, over right around $13 million you can pass on. And then as you go forward, by law right now, it's dropping way down. Right?
Okay.
So about 6 million is the expectation starting in 2026. So as a couple, that's 12. But if you had 10 to start with, if managed well, that should be a whole lot more than 12.
At the end, yeah.
So what are you doing to position your assets so that at the end of the day, your family or your charity or whatever it may be gets it as much as possible? It does not go to the federal government for state tax purposes. It's something you can avoid, but you have to plan for it. And no planning means you could lose a significant portion of that when you pass.
Yes, yeah, great answer. Yeah, and that really kind of captures the essence of it is, if we can help you maximize it, Transact Capital can help you maximize it, but we want to make sure that it's going to provide for the life that you want. And so, I mean, this was a really good conversation. So as we look forward, we talked about, like some parting words here. Really, I think, give us a little bit of a preview of, what are the other things that you're excited to continue talking about? And, this was an initial conversation, pretty high level, introductory. I think there's a lot of unique strategies that we're going to talk about going forward that are really going to be helpful. So give us a little preview and some some parting words as we look forward.
Yeah, I really look forward to being able to do this. A passion of mine is the education component for this, and there's just not a good resource. I mean, besides what you put together here, honestly, there's not a whole lot of places where business owners can come and get advice relevant to them and running a business and selling their business. It's kind of, who do I know that has done this before, and who can I talk to about it? So being able to just talk through, I think the future, if you'd be so kind as to ask me back, would be to talk through some real life scenarios. Just here's some case studies that we've seen. Here's how they ended up. To talk through some options you have for exit, how you can position for multi options when you get there. We start early. You kind of have a couple different things happening. Having your key team, the people who are driving that growth, motivated to drive you towards the best exit possible because it's good for them too. They're not going to leave or want to leave at exit because of what you've built in structures and systems for them. All of that really, and then I think the next piece I would say that would be helpful as part of it is really going through the process itself. What happens at each step of this as you're going through it so that you can be prepared for that exit as best you can.
That sounds great. Yeah, and much appreciated. And so we're excited to be doing this and excited to be partnering with people like yourself that are motivated and engaged and really knowledgeable. It's one thing to be highly motivated and eager, but you bring a lot of information that is really going to be exciting to go over. So thank you for joining us today, and I really look forward to continuing these conversations. So,
yeah,
thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yep.
Transact Capital presents Banking on Your Business with Jacob Robertson.